Hey you, and welcome. In this video, we will start using design systems such as Chakra UI. So let's dive right into it. I'm looking at the documentation for Chakra UI, and that's the one we will be using in our project. There are many out there though. There's Material UI, Ant Design, React, Bootstrap, you name it. There's tons and tons of them. And design system is a preset components that every developer would need in almost every project, such as text inputs for forms or lists to show something, paragraphs, different heading styles. So that's basically a design system along with a lot more attached on top. So let me show you an example. If I go over to the docs, get started, there is a components section. And in the components, you can see there's accordion, there's tabs, visually hidden. There's tons of items, circular progress bar. So if you want to create animated progress bar, if I click into it, they'll show you the whole documentation. How do you import that from their library? How does it look when it gets rendered? And different sizes, different props can make different designs happen. So that's what a component library or design system would do for us, along with much more. All right, so let's see how we can start work with design like Chakra UI in this case. So I'll go to get started again, and it does give me instructions if you're using npm or yarn or pnpm. We are using npm, so that's what I'm going to stick with. I can run this command in my CLI, and that should install the necessary packages for us. So I'll head over to my iTerm, and while I'm in my app folder, I will paste that in and press enter. Okay, so that's going to install the dependencies for me. Once they are ready, we should be able to follow the next step of the documentation. So let me just hide my terminal for now. Let's take a look at the next step of documentation. And it says next step is you have to wrap Chakra Provider on top of your app. So that's what we're going to do, is import the Chakra Provider from Chakra UI React and wrap that around. Let me see if the dependencies are ready. They are. Perfect. All right, let's go back to our VS Code, and the root of our app would be index.tsx. I'll hide my file explorer, and I will wrap under the line number 11 and above line number 12. It doesn't really matter. The provider could be even under logs provider. It's just that I believe for me, logs provider should be under Chakra in case logs provider ever becomes like a UI component. Okay, so let's import Chakra Provider, and VS Code will help me out here because I've worked with Chakra Provider before, but if you haven't, you can just import that. So let's start working with that like this. I will create a new line, import from at Chakra Provider React or Chakra UI React, and pass the Chakra Provider like so, and render that out. Make sure logs provider app is children of Chakra Provider. Okay, great. So that's our Chakra Provider ready to go. If I refresh my app at this point, nothing really happens. Also, well, small things happen. But I also want to restart my server in case there are some dependencies that need my server to be restarted. So let's go back to my terminal. I will cancel this, Control C, and I'll start npm start again, press enter. So that's just restarting the server. And when that is restarted, I should be able to refresh my page. Perfect. Nothing has broken down, but the text is looking different and styling is a little different. So Chakra Provider has started already giving me some styles. Let's start working with some components. For example, this is a name, something. These are text, and I want them to be different sizes and different weight. So let's start changing those around. If I go back to my Firefox, let's go to components. And I think there's one called typography or text. Text area, text. Okay, so there's heading, there's highlight, and then there's text. Let's start working with heading first. So for heading, we have to import heading like so. So I'll copy that, and I'll move over to my app.tsx in VS Code. And I believe the first one under hero. So let's go to hero.tsx. This is a heading. So let's import Chakra heading. And instead of H1, let's start using Chakra component heading. Save that. Perfect. It's looking good as is. I don't need to make any changes. If I did need to, I can look at the usage, and we can see that if you want any of these other heading styles, we can start passing it props like a size, and size can be type of 4XL, 3XL, so on and so forth. So if you want to make modifications, that's how you do it. Maybe let's make small modification. Let's make the heading a medium size if it's not already. So I'll pass size, and notice that VS Code is helping me out because Chakra UI is TypeScript friendly. So if you're using TypeScript, it's going to allow you to see into the documentation right from the VS Code. So it makes it very easy. You don't have to remember any of this. There's tons of documentation. Just follow the documentation and work with that. And it changes quite frequently as well. So I wouldn't memorize any of this. All right, let's go back to the documentation. I will now go back to the page in the components and scroll all the way to the bottom where I saw text. I think it was all the way to the bottom. There we go. And let's start importing text in the paragraph component that we have. So I'll go back to app.tsx. Let's do Command P, paragraph.tsx, quick way to find it, and import up top our text component. And let's, instead of using P, we'll provide text like so and save that. Okay, nothing has really changed. So let's start making some small changes to see what we can do here. There's a font size we can change, and it can be a medium size as well. So let's start working with that. So I'll say a font size of, and it would be, there are so many. Let's work with large. Large is large like that, or medium. A little bit smaller. Okay, good. So it's looking good. We can also work with a list component. So let's see if there's a list component here that we can work with. There we are. They have some cool lists. So this is, of course, we don't have to import all of these components. This is all the different components that you can work with that can render different lists. So what I would recommend here is to work with a predefined recipe. So if I scroll down, this list is looking good. I could work with this. This is not so much. I don't want numbers there. This is looking much nicer. It has icons with it. So let's work with some icons as well. It's going to be pretty cool. So in order to see this, I'll copy the code that is provided to me here for the list item, the entire recipe, and I'll go over to my VS Code, and under logs, under app.tsx, where I'm rendering all these logs, right above it, I will paste the whole code. Now this is a big dump, so it's going to be very confusing. So let's stick with me. I'm going to say list, yes, import that from Chakra UI. So I'm pressing Option Return, importing that auto. List item, I will import that auto as well. And list icon, import that auto as well. And a medium circle, this may not be auto importable. Yeah, so because this is a default export, it doesn't know where to import that from. So I will leave this out for now. And let's delete all the other list items. I only want to work with one at a moment. Perfect. So I have, let me just indent this properly. Great. So I have one list with one list item in Chakra, and I want my logs to adapt to this. So UL will be replaced with list. And spacing 3, I'll copy that over as a parameter, or prop, sorry. Perfect. And UL closing will change to list as well. So that's first component gone from the HTML. Next would be the list item. So I have to copy over this entire list item, paste that in here. I'll take away the whole list copy that I did from Chakra UI. And then for the lorem ipsum portion, I will start a JS inside JSX and provide item. Save that. Now MD check circle becomes more mandatory for us to work with. So let me go back to the documentation and let's see where we are getting this MD circle from. And if I was to go back into documentation and search for icons, there we are. And if I click on icon, we can import icon, but we have to start installing another dependency, which is called the Chakra UI icon. So let's do that really quickly. I'll go to iterm again. Inside my app, I will run this command and it will install the icons for me. Great. Let's go back to our VS Code. Up top, this is a default export, so we can't really import that automatically. I will import something from, oops, I didn't do that properly, add Chakra UI icons. And I think I have to drill down even further. Do I? Let me see. Okay. So I can actually destructure. They are not default exports, so I can work with, let's say, message. No? Phone. Phone icon. All right, perfect. Let's work with phone icon and replace as with phone icon. Save that. Perfect, it's working. And I can click on something and that's looking good as well. One last thing before I go any further, I will work with the button component. That's one of the more visually appealing ones. So let's go back to the documentation, search for button component, and go to the documentation. We can import button or button group. Again, we don't have to import both, so I'm going to work with a predefined recipe, in this case button component coming from Chakra. So I'll copy that and go back to my VS Code, and inside I think I can replace the whole button component. No, there's some business logic in there. Let's go to button.tsx, import, or it will auto import for me. Let's replace our button component on line 36 with the button component from Chakra. I will comment out the lines underneath. Auto import. I think button is already imported from somewhere. No? Oh, because our component is called button. So let's call this Chakra button. Chakra button. All right. Now if I do auto import, it's not going to work because we have renamed it. So we have to do it manually. So let's go up there, import from Chakra UI React a button component, and I will use as Chakra button. So when you do as Chakra button, that's just going to rename the button to Chakra button, so we don't have any duplication of names, where in my case I already have my component named button and there cannot be two buttons being used inside this component. All right, so with Chakra button working, color scheme blue, looking good. I will keep the styles. Sure, let's keep the styles. I may take it away if it looks too ugly. On click, yes, we definitely need to keep that. What else? Nothing else. Children. Okay, yes, that's the, instead of button name, this should be getting children. Delete everything else, save it. Perfect. So that's working. Of course, the styling is not looking so hot, so I'll take away the style altogether. We don't need this anymore. This looks so much better. Very nice, very nice. All right, so that's how you work with Chakra UI. We'll be using this a whole lot to create our pages. I'll see you all in the next video.